What is up, guys? The LA Gamer here, and today I am bringing you guys a rebuild of the San Francisco 49ers on Madden 17. Now, in today's episode, well, actually, I'll just be showing you guys the 49ers rebuild. I don't know what I was going with on that one, but either way, I accidentally simulated the first season and my recording program cut out, but I had a phenomenal draft. Like a phenomenal draft. And I was like, I can't throw away this draft just because that first season didn't save. So I'm going to take a second here to show you guys the new roster, show you guys what moves I made, so you guys know what's going on. For starters, I have Ahmad Brooks. Secondly, I drafted this guy, Lamel Henry, was I believe the first overall pick. Actually, he was my number one overall pick because we had the worst team in the league last year. And if you look very closely, it looks like I made a very good decision in drafting this guy. He was the number one overall pick, but not only was he that, but he was rated the number one player in that draft class. So I made the best pick possible, obviously. He's an 83 overall player. He has superstar development rating, and you'll see as the years go by, he turns into an absolute monster. So here's a look at my offense. Obviously, I made a few moves in the offseason. Nothing crazy. I mean, I did get Willie Snead. I did also get Will Hill. So it was kind of the offseason of wills for me. So outside of that, this will be the end of that first season. So this is the thing that I really want to warn you guys to do. In Madden, the very tough thing about editing this is that I can't show you guys the week by week, because when you're simming week by week, it takes you to a giant simulation screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go year by year. So what I recommend you guys do is look closely in that top left corner. It doesn't show it right now, but typically it'll show where you are in the season. So right now we are at the end of that first season I just was showing you guys. The end of the second season, technically. The first season didn't save, so this is the end of the second season. The end of 2017 to be specific. If you look closely, for Offensive Player of the Year in the NFC, we have our guy, our rookie quarterback, Lane Vick. He will also win Offensive Rookie of the Year for us. So that's our quarterback. We drafted him, I believe, like the second round, and he's kind of more of a mobile quarterback. He's an absolute stud. I have to be honest about that one. He's an absolute beast. And then for Defensive Rookie of the Year, we got Lamel Henry. So obviously, we have a little bit of studs on each side of the ball. I feel kind of like the Raiders. You know, they have Khalil Mack, they have Derek Carr. That's what I feel right now, because we got a guy in Lamel Henry who obviously is like a Khalil Mack, and then we have a very good quarterback and Lane Vick, who I'm hoping can be like a Derek Carr for us. So obviously it's too early to tell or jump to conclusions like that, but I figured what I wanted to do is just kind of show you guys what each of these things look like. And if you look closely, Lamel Henry is not only the Defensive Rookie of the Year, but he is the best linebacker in the NFC already. As a rookie, he is the best linebacker. And let's just take into consideration how talented that makes this guy and how much that has to make me look forward to the future. So of course I showed you guys the awards, but now is the time to show you guys the stats. Lane Vick, 23 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 3,500 passing yards on a 63% completion percentage, which results in, what was that, an 88.4 quarterback rating. Our running game wasn't that bad, to be honest. In total, we probably racked up close to 2,000 yards, or about 1,700 yards. When you combined all the players, Carlos Hyde obviously being our leading rusher, but he wasn't able to quite reach that 1,000 yard rushing season. Then receiving wise, really wasn't that impressed. Willie Snead only managed to get about 500 receiving yards. So receiving wise, I wasn't that impressed. But then defensively, of course, we have the defensive rookie and best linebacker in the league on our team. 109 tackles, 7 TFLs, 11 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, no fumble recoveries, but still, he was turning over the ball, or forcing the opposing offenses to turn over the ball at a very high rate. So that's something to be very impressed by. But after that, we obviously are going on into the offseason. So what I'm going to do here in this offseason is try to make a few big moves in free agency. For starters, I'm looking at this guy right here, obviously Jarvis Landry, making a big name for himself this year on the Miami Dolphins. An LSU product, he played alongside Odell Beckham at his time at LSU. So we're going to try to pick up him as one of our wide receivers. And then the only other move I make besides that, I believe, is picking up this left tackle who's he's like a couple years in the league. He might be a rookie. I only really picked him up just because I needed a left tackle. He's a pretty decent overall, and I figure if he's so young, there might be some room for him to actually develop a little bit. That's kind of the hope, at least. So that's what I'm going to do. And either way, while this thing is loading real quick, what I want to say is before we get into the draft, I want you guys to please comment down below real quick before you forget what team I should rebuild next. This is like a series I'm really going to make popular on this channel. So comment down a team I should rebuild, and I'm going to rebuild it because I'm really looking forward to doing more videos like this. So we have the number 5 overall pick in this draft. I didn't even think twice about it. I'm going to draft this guy right here, Jamaria Toon, and we actually make the perfect pick. He's ranked 5th in true talent, and we drafted him at number 5. So in the past 2 years, we have made the perfect pick twice, because last year I drafted the number 1 overall player, and he ended up being the number 1 overall prospect. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't able to show you guys that because the recording cut out. But you still know who I'm talking about. So either way, we end up reaching on that next pick with our defensive tackle. After that, we're going to go with this guy right here, Gage Docker. You can look closely at his stats if you really want to. He ended up being a really good pick. He's ranked number 54 in true talent. We got him at number 106. And outside of that, that's basically all we did in the offseason. So here we go into another end of season stat line. Right here, Lane Vick, after his second year in the league, has a pretty nice season. Jamaria Toon in his rookie season gets 10 touchdowns and almost 1,000 rushing yards. One more carry, he probably could have reached that 1,000 yard rushing mark. And he also fumbled 6 times. So that's the only real issue. Receiving wise, though, this is where we're having issues. Jarvis Landry, we gave a lot of money. He has a lot of touchdowns. He has a pretty good amount of yards. But I mean, Willie Snead's not doing anything for us. He has a lot of receptions, but barely any yards whatsoever. And then defensively, Lamel Henry had a pretty decent season. Didn't quite live up to his rookie season, but he had one of those senior declines. That happens occasionally. And then there's our kicker, Dunker Hoover. We only got him because we ran out of kickers and we couldn't afford one. So in this year's offseason, we have the 2nd overall pick. So we're going to go into this and try to see what we can do, try to see what we can manage. We're looking closely, and this is something I like never do. But what I decided to do in this year's draft is to draft a left tackle. You'll see, I'm looking around, I'm trying to decide what I want to do, but I ended up drafting this left tackle up here, London Cherilis. Something I never do, and something I may never do again, because this guy ends up being, well, not that much of a stud. Number 35 in true talent, and we drafted him at number 2 overall. So we ended up making quite a mistake with that pick right there. Now, the only reason I did that was because, I'll be honest, the Dallas Cowboys in real life have motivated me to start drafting offensive linemen. That's the truth. Because they've really built their whole entire team around offensive linemen. And I figured I wanted to do the same thing, but it ended up working out a little bit for me, because if you look closely here, here's a look at my team schedule. We ended up finishing 9-7 after a 3-game winning streak to finish the season, and that winning streak will propel us into the playoffs. So we're right here into the wild card round. Here's a look at some of the big games of the season, and some of the more important things we've done that have actually led us into this situation where we are at right now. So obviously, we're a few years in. This is a pretty exciting moment for me as a coach. To finally make it in to the playoffs. Now, I want to emphasize real quick, I'm only intending on doing each rebuild for 5 years. That's the goal. This isn't supposed to happen every time. It's supposed to be a challenge to see if I can rebuild this team and see if I'm going to make a mistake or not. If I'm not successful, I may come back and revisit the team. For example, if I failed this rebuild, I'll come back later and post another 49ers rebuild and try to succeed in the next try and see what I can do differently. I'm not going to give away any spoilers of whether I succeed or not. But so far, it looks like we're definitely headed in the right direction. In the past few years, my record continuously seems to be increasing a little bit. We seem to be winning a few more games, and obviously after last season, which was obviously a down year, giving us the number 2 overall pick, we turned that all the way around to bring us back into the playoffs with a 9-7 record. So you have to figure, with all the young talent on our team, and obviously us being a playoff team right now, you have to figure that within a couple of seasons, we should be a Super Bowl contending team, which obviously is the goal. Now, I say 5 years too. And 5 years is kind of the goal on when I'll rebuild this team. But if I'm really close to winning the Super Bowl, or something like that, then I'll just keep playing through the 5 years until we win it. Regardless of any of that, though, if you look closely, I did simulate that first playoff game, that wildcard game, and we do end up beating the number 1 team in our division, which is the Seahawks, in that wildcard game. So let's take a quick look at what happened there. You see, we end up beating them 38-24. It wasn't even close. That was a blowout. The Seahawks defense, that Legion of Bloom, got lit up in this specific day. The funny thing is, Lane Vick didn't even have a good day. We actually beat them on the running game. As you see, Lane Vick gets a rushing touchdown of his own, and Jamaria Toon is able to knock down 2 rushing touchdowns of his own. So obviously they did whatever they could. The real highlight of the Seahawks defense, though, is their passing defense, and obviously we were able to tear that apart with a nice rushing game. A nice little mixture of our rookie running back Jamaria Toon, and obviously a nice little mixture of our mobile quarterback and Lane Vick. So that's kind of where we were able to be successful. The only real issue, though, is Lamel Henry is out of this game for 4 weeks, out of the playoffs. So that will push him almost perfectly out of the playoff time, and we would really need him in this week against the Green Bay Packers, against Aaron Rodgers, and obviously not having him back to help us out is really what wasn't able to propel us over that hump in the Green Bay Packers. This was really a game that I wanted to win, because if you look closely, when we go back here and look, we lost by a touchdown, and it looks like that could have been not that close of a game, but if you look closely, it was an overtime victory for the Green Bay Packers. If we had our dominant linebacker on Lamel Henry, remember, he is widely considered one of the best defensive players in the league at this point, and he's only 2 years in. you have to assume he would have made a few big plays, which may have resulted in us winning this football game, which is really sad to think. It's just a very untimely injury to happen out of him. So now we are about 3 or 4 years in, and I'll be honest, I spent a lot of time in this rebuild. Now, it may not seem it, because obviously I cut out a lot of things. Right here, we're now in free agency. I'm going to give Jalen Ramsey a lot of money here to hopefully come and play cornerback for our San Francisco 49ers. We're going to give him a lot of money. Remember, like, look at how much I'm bumping the salary up. I'm really trying to give him an intriguing offer. We have a lot of money on the books right now, a lot of money that we can give off. And so I'm really excited to have a big free agency. So first, obviously, I give some money to Jalen Ramsey. Next up, I give some money to this top-notch right guard. And after that, I give some money to Laramie Tunzel, possible left guard for us, to hopefully bolster this offensive line. I'm hoping Jalen Ramsey can fix our secondary, because that's really the downfall in our team, I think. So after that, the only big things I needed to make was get this guy, Robert, I'm not even going to try it, Kimdiche. Is that just how you say it? Robert Kimdiche? Either way, we gave him a huge offer, and I want to give you guys a little forewarning that this guy ends up being an absolute monster. I think he gets like 13 sacks next season or something like that. He ends up being an absolute stud. So he was one of the better pickups I get in this free agency. But despite all of that, this next upcoming season, I believe, is the last season I sim. Now, the reason I do that is I spent a lot of time, like at least 3 hours into this rebuild. And after this last season where I made the playoffs, I made it pretty far, I made it to the divisional round. I expected some very big things from us the next season. And despite that, a series of things kind of go wrong, which kind of prevent that from happening. So you see, we drafted that guy Trent Gunn right there to be our starting strong safety for the next season, because the only real issue we had in our team was strong safety. That's the only real thing we needed to actually get fixed. But luckily, we get a guy right there. You see him, J Tark, who actually ends up moving back over. But once again, this next playoffs, Lamell Henry gets injured once again. Obviously, if you look closely, it doesn't have any effect, because we finished 7-8-1, which was not good enough for us to be a playoff team this year. So once again, this was a pretty disappointing season. Now, the real flaw in the season, though, is all of our players, all of our rookies, the big ones that we drafted, Lane Vick and Lamell Henry, the big players on our team, are on expiring contracts this year. This is where things become a real problem, because we don't have a lot of money to sign them back. And obviously, the bigger concern is if they're not interested in signing back with us, there's nothing we can do. So I go back here. You see, I'm just looking through a few of the annual awards. You see, NFC, we don't really have anybody up there for Offensive Player of the Year, which kind of shows kind of how much our team is lacking. We don't really have anybody for Defensive Player of the Year either. So our team obviously has a lot of cracks in it. I think the biggest thing is our team just doesn't have talent. And I don't understand, because I spent a lot of money on some very talented players. For example, Jalen Ramsey or Will Hill, or a possible Landry. Why can't I think his name's true? No, I don't know why that's not. It's not coming to mind. But the wide receiver we got, Willie Snead, for example, we drafted some very talented players. So we're gonna end up actually going into the draft here. This next upcoming draft, we didn't do anything in free agency. The only real big moves we made was we were able to re-sign Lane Vick. We were able to re-sign, Lamell Henry. Lamell Henry, however, did not want to sign with us. He only signed with us because we offered him a franchise tag. And, well, obviously, once you get franchise tagged, you don't have a lot of options. Outside of that, though, for Lane Vick, we had to offer him a 4-year contract. We gave him a lot of money, though, close to $20 million to $25 million a year. So he ends up accepting that contract, obviously. There's no person in the world who's going to deny $20 million a year. And so he is going to come to our team to remain the starting quarterback for us. So those were kind of the only real big moves that we made in terms of the offseason, in terms of free agent signings. We didn't have really any money after that to sign anybody else. And outside of that, this ends up being our last season for possible success. And if you guys look closely at my team schedule, you can probably assume what happens. We're now, at this point, 2-6 in the season. Our bye week happens to be week 9. And you see right here, Lane Vick's not having a very talented season. 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Rushing wise, Jamario Tune's not having that bad of a season, I'm going to be honest with it. Just not a whole lot of touchdowns. Jarvis Landry's doing a pretty phenomenal job, but he seems to be the only real receiver on our team who is stepping up to the plate. And defensively, Lamell Henry is doing a pretty decent job. You see he has 7.5 sacks at midseason, so obviously he's on pace for about 15 sacks this season. So he's looking like he's going to be pretty good, but regardless of those few players stepping up, it obviously has not translated to a winning record. We're 2-6, and we're not winning any games here. You see, I sim the rest of it. We finished 8-7-1. So I look closely. I'm hoping that we make a playoff bid, and we don't. We're just a few spots out Lane Vick obviously turned his season around the second half of the season. 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, rushing-wise. Jamario Toon, 1,300 yards with 10 touchdowns. He definitely turned it around also. He was doing pretty good already, but he stepped it up to a whole nother level. Then we look at the receiving-wise. You see Jarvis Landry, our first 1,000-yard receiver. So everything looks like it's supposed to be going for us. But for some reason, it just did not translate into victories. And it didn't translate into a win-loss record. And you see here, Lamell Henry finished with only 9.5 sacks. So in that second half of the season, he only got 2 more sacks. So he obviously did not really step up to the plate. And this is where things really become an issue. Lamell Henry, we're trying to give him as much money as possible. This dude's a stud linebacker. We want him back on the team. We're giving him tons of money to sign with us. But then when we make the offer, just wait for it. This is where things become a problem. I'm just not interested in signing. Now, this may seem like an issue right now, but so I'll franchise tag him. But the issue is, I try to re-sign all these other players, and none of them want to re-sign. It's already been about 5 years, so I figure at this point, it's time to call this quits. It's time for me to say that I am not able to rebuild the San Francisco 49ers. I got very close, I think, to making a playoff bid, but I never really was able to turn this team all the way around. So that's kind of where I had to cut it short, and that's kind of where I had to realize I was not a good enough manager yet at this time to rebuild the 49ers. So give me a team, please, in the comment section below for me to rebuild next. I promise I'll be looking into it, and I'll be just kind of choosing one out of the hat, out of the guys that you guys comment below, out of the teams you guys comment below. I think the biggest issue with this is I didn't do enough trades. I think I need to trade a little bit more. Get a little bit more talent through the trading block and things of that nature, rather than just drafting and free agency. And that's something I'm going to do in the future. So obviously, as time goes on, I'll become a better rebuilder and things will get better. But this is just the first of many to come. And I hope you guys take a lot of control in future ones. Now, a few ideas I want to put up there real quick. For starters, should I live stream my rebuild so you guys can be a part of it while I'm doing it? That's definitely up to your guys' discretion and seeing if you guys will be willing to watch them with me while I do them. But that's something you guys are interested in, something I'll consider doing. Secondly, I want to consider, obviously, the teams that you guys put down there, and whatever teams you guys put down there is something I would do. Give me some tips on how I can edit this better, because this is one of my first times doing a rebuild series like this, where I do all of it in one episode. I don't know if it was a little bit too fast-paced or a little bit too hard to keep up with, but if it was, give me some tips on what I can do to make it a little bit better, and I'll look into it. But outside of that, I really hope you guys enjoyed, and that's the end of this first episode, and this first rebuild on Madden 17. So if you guys enjoyed, please click the like button below. Make sure to comment your opinion of this series and what I could make more interesting in the comment section below. And lastly, subscribe if you haven't already to stay tuned to this series and other series I got going on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.